Okay, so we're looking at chapter 10 today. This is gonna be our 7th day. We're chapter 10 of our senior manual, or this would be chapter 14 of your regular textbook. Again, I would read them both, but if you only have time to read the one, I would read chapter 14. So regular textbook always. So today we're going to be talking about acute variables. Acute variables are your things like your sets, reps, tempo, intensity, things like that, right? Like for instance, we were looking at sets and reps and rest periods when we did movement prep, but we didn't really talk too much about intensity. Intensity is going to be lifting at like a percentage of your 1 repetition max, right? So today, we're going to kind of address some of that. And so we want to be familiar with some of our physiologic considerations when we're looking at seniors, but we also want to understand like how different acute variables cause different types of stress. Different types of stress result in different physiologic adaptations. So we need to know all of these acute variables in order to write effective programs. So programs are often developed based on, past experience in the past, right? Like, so like generally the way trainers used to write programs, like proto trainers, like pre-NASM good trainers, they used to just be kind of based on past experiences. They used to be just like people would write a program, be like, well, this worked for me, it should work for you, And that's not really the best way to write a program because everybody's a little bit different. We all have different biology and stuff. And so instead, NASM wanted to take a scientific approach, and that's where they created the OPT model. So now we have, sort of a different approach to program design, which is based on knowledge physiologically, your interpersonal skills, and then your past experiences with your clients as well. So there is like, you can take into account, but it's not the only thing that's like, the only thing that is considered when writing a program. So, in order to be proficient at program design, we got to understand like what exercises are most appropriate for your client. If your client has really excessive shoulder rounding, yeah, you can do a little bit to strengthen the chest, but like they already have shoulder protraction. So we don't need a lot more chest work, right? If they have a forward head posture, well, we need to do the types of stretches that stretch their neck out to get them back to a neutral position. So that's how we're going to choose our exercises based on their posture and their performance, right? And then we also know like what exercises are contraindicated for our clients, what kind of stuff needs to be avoided. They have osteoporosis, be cautious with foam rolling. That can, put a little bit too much pressure on the skeletal system. If they have hypertension, we got to make sure we're not whipping their head around side to side or anything like that. What exercise intensities are appropriate for your client? Like if your client is trying to develop like endurance, well, then intensities should be relatively low. Because if your intensity is too high, they're not going to be able to do very many repetitions. Without very many repetitions, you cannot build endurance. So the appropriate number of exercises, if you're doing like push-ups, chest press, bench press, chest flies, cable chest press, decline push-ups, handstand push-ups, if you're doing like all these chest exercises on one day, you're going to turn your chest into soup, and then you're going to end up with like a friggin' overuse injury, So we need to know like what the number of exercises is, the optimal amount of sets and reps. Again, we know there's a relationship. If your reps are very, very high, then your intensity needs to be low, which means you don't need very many sets. But if your intensity is very high, your reps are going to be very low, which means you're going to need more sets. You don't want to do 1 set of 1 repetition. It's not really going to be enough, stress to create like a physiologic adaptation. Likewise, you don't want to do 5 sets of 20 repetitions. That's too much, And we need to know the right number of days to train our client. So when we're considering this, right, we need to consider performing resistance training in general for our senior clients. That's about 2 to 3 days per week on average is when we are doing our resistance training. Generally with senior clients, the rep ranges that have been shown to be most effective are between 1 and 3 sets and 8 to 20 reps. Now, obviously today, I want to teach you about overall program design. So we're going to address that, 1 to 7. We're going to go from 1 to 20 repetitions. We're going to go from 1 to 6 sets. But in general, if you notice like these numbers here, and for those of you who have been through program design, you'll notice that means we're particularly focusing on phases 1 and 2 with our senior clients. And so when we look at the OPT model, I have to pull this up every day. When I look at, I was just making my desktop background. When I look at the OPT model, you know, we're generally going to stay in the stabilization. We are working on strength, but we're mostly focusing on strength and endurance. I also do really like hypertrophy with my senior clients in terms of like trying to keep their muscle mass. And that's why you'll notice like we can take those reps all the way down to about 8. True hypertrophy actually goes down to about 6 reps. But 8 to 20 is a generally good range there. And then we want to progress our clients from like free sitting up to standing. So in general, we like phases 1 and 2, but if your client has like a mass problem and they are losing muscle mass pretty quickly, I actually think hypertrophy is very helpful for that. It doesn't necessarily say that directly in your text, but there's my personal take on it. So big important thing to remember is whenever you're writing a program, always make safe and effective programs. You want to make sure that you're being systematic. We don't want to start in power. You know, we want to start by building a foundation of stability. Then we can take those joints that we now know how to control, and we can teach those joints how to lift really, really heavy. Then once they know how to lift heavy, we can have them lift for maximal intensities at super high velocities. So that's sort of what we're looking at there. And that's why the OPT model is so effective, is it does all that systematic progression for you. You know, it is a staircase. So again, general considerations, 2 to 3 days per week, 1 to 3 sets, 8 to 20 reps. Slowly progress, and then make sure you are working towards free sitting or even standing if possible. A lot of your clients will need to start by sitting or laying down for most of their exercises. Then we can make that more challenging as we, you know, sort of move forward. Now, there are some special considerations when working with seniors. Obviously, proper breathing is important. We know that many of our senior clients suffer from arterio and atherosclerosis, right? Thinning or thickening of blood vessels, thinning or hardening of blood vessels. And so the Valsalva maneuver, which is a great technique in general, is totally inappropriate for most of our senior clients. And so what the Valsalva maneuver is, that's where you inhale during the eccentric portion of the lift, and then you forcefully exhale and sort of hold your breath and create like a vacuum and through pursed lifts during the concentric portion. So, you know, you'll see it when deadlifters, you know, it's actually the Valsalva maneuver is super important during a deadlift. So you'll go down, take a big deep breath in, hold your breath a little bit, and then exhale as you're bringing that up, right? And what that does is because you're pushing so hard on your abdominal cavity, it's creating all kinds of abdominal pressure, and so it protects your spine. Very important for power lifters. If you're doing barbell squats, even bench presses or deadlifts, Valsalva maneuver is really important there. But not super appropriate for anyone. If you have hypertension problems, right, all that does is create more pressure. So that can be very dangerous for our senior clients or anybody who has high blood pressure. If self-myofascial release or static stretches are tolerable, you can go for it. But if they aren't, if it causes bruising or if that static stretch causes like an aching sensation to happen, sometimes you'll even get like, you'll have clients who complain about like tendinitis from doing static stretches. Then you want to instead try to do slow rhythmic stretching, such as active isolated stretches. That can be a little bit more effective. If your client has osteoporosis, foam rolling might need to be avoided, right? That could cause like microfractures that we don't want, or even bruising. Arthritic clients who have arthritis, which is very common as we get older, want to keep our repetitions somewhere between 8 and 12 repetitions, because too many reps can cause more inflammation in those joints, and that's something we want to be cautious of. So that is what we are looking at when it comes to our special considerations for our senior clients, right? And those are all the things that we did kind of talk about in our special populations class, but we kind of wanted to review it here. So we talked about it yesterday. We talked about resistance training for the OPT model. Today, we're going to kind of put resistance training and everything together. And so when we look at our OPT model, we know that it is stabilization, strength, and power. Those are our 3 levels, right? Levels are what determine exercise selection. So there are stabilization exercises, strength exercises, and power exercises. Until today, we haven't really discussed any of the differences between the 3 different versions of strength. And that's why we have phases, right? So you've got levels, which choose your exercise selection, and you've got phases, which determine your acute variables like reps, sets, and intensities, because there is a difference between strength endurance and maximal strength. Hey, we got Noel in here. What's up, Noel? Good to see you, man. Until now, like we have been talking about how levels determine our exercise selection. So there's no such thing as a hypertrophy exercise. There are strength exercises. There are no hypertrophy, but there are hypertrophy reps, and there's hypertrophy sets and hypertrophy tempos, right? So there are, and that's where we have like these different phases. There are differences between the phases, just not in terms of your exercise selection. So generally, like I said, older clients are going to focus on stabilization and strength. And what's nice about knowing that like the levels determine the exercise selection is that you can sort of fudge some of these rules a little bit. And Robert, this is mostly for you or anybody on the call or anybody watching this who has been through program design before. Let's say you have a client in strength endurance and they don't have the endurance. Like you want to move them out of stabilization because they've gotten used to it, but you want to start doing some strength movements instead of stabilization movements, but they just cannot handle that superset technique. All right, then do the strength movements and do them for a high number of repetitions. Nothing wrong with that, right? You're still in the strength level because that's your exercise selection. Now you're doing strength exercises, but you fudge the rules a little bit so that you still get a similar adaptation. Then eventually when they can handle a little bit more of that endurance, we can start implementing that superset. And that's why I want you guys to be so freaking clear with how to use the OPT model as it's designed. Because the better that you know how to do the OPT model as it's designed, the better you can break it and use it as it's not designed. And that's really where like a lot of the art of program design comes in, you know? I want you guys to know how to paint by numbers so that you can learn how to paint. I like that analogy. I'm going to use that in the future. Let's look at the stabilization level. We talked about this yesterday, right? Stabilization level is the first level of training. This is designed to prepare the body for the higher levels of the OPT model, right? So it only consists of one phase, and that is going to be your stabilization endurance phase, right? That is going to utilize stabilization exercises in order to enhance your muscle and joint stability. So all of the exercises in the stabilization level are related to joint stability. So going through our entire OPT template workout, right? If we look at all of our OPT examples here, right? Let's say I've got a stabilization program right here. Oh no, why is that blank? There we go. Let's say I've got a stabilization workout here, right? I'm doing foam rolling exercises, static stretches. I'm doing core stabilization exercises, which don't move my spine, core balance exercises that don't move my balance leg, reactive stabilization exercises that focus on landing and holding that stabilization for 3 to 5 seconds. And then I'm doing stabilization exercises where I'm really just doing a slow tempo. And I'm holding these big long pauses. I'm moving nice and slow. I'm really focused on just creating joint stabilization. I'm teaching my brain, my nervous system, and my joints how to hold my bones at the right angle and how to recruit my muscles at the right time for the right amount of force. I'm focused on neuromuscular efficiency and proprioception. And that's why we're going to see a very high number of sets. A very low number of sets and a very high number of repetitions. I always forget that those two are in that order. So good examples of stabilization exercises are things like the single leg cable row or the single leg overhead press, right? I love a traditional 2-legged overhead press, but if I'm working on joint stability, I want to be on one leg. So as we look at it, we're going to see 1 to 3 sets, 12 to 20 repetitions. We're going to lift at a 4-2-1 tempo. in general. And so what that means is like my eccentric portion of the lift, right? When my muscle is lengthening, I should take 4 seconds to lengthen that muscle. And then when my muscle is transitioning from lengthening to shortening, right? The pause in between, I want to take a 2-second pause. Then I want to shorten my muscle for 1 second. So if I were doing squats, I would do, let's say I'm doing like just a regular old body weight squat. I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. And there we go, right? Like that's my nice slow tempo. The advantages to this, it gives my joints plenty of time to learn how to do the movements, right? And like can recruit like my tendons and ligaments and strengthen them. My nervous system, remember, this is also where we start a lot of our beginner clients. So we're doing a high number of reps and we're doing a high duration for each of those reps. That's plenty of time. Like, are you going to learn something by doing it once quickly, or are you going to learn something by doing it a lot of times slowly, right? We're teaching the body and the brain how to do these movements. That's why good form is so important. Good form is developed in the stabilization level. And the other benefit here, because the eccentric portion and the isometric portion are so long, that drives a lot of blood into your connective tissue. It allows your joints to get a lot of blood flow, which one of the things, if you'll remember from our anatomy classes, tendons and ligaments don't usually get a lot of blood flow. And so because of that, they repair very slowly. And that's why if I had like LeBron James and I was training him, LeBron is in terrific shape, I would still give him a stabilization routine. A lot of people think stabilization is like a beginner's routine. And so they think that they're like, oh, I'm good at exercise, I don't need to do the stabilization level, right? It's not about being a beginner. It's about driving blood flow into your connective tissue, which is something all of us need, no matter how good of an athlete you are. So it is important to recycle back into stabilization a couple times a year, just to make sure that you're letting those joints, ligaments, and tendons recover effectively. Now, because the repetition scheme is 12 to 20 reps, which is a lot of reps, right? That's going to correspond with about 50 to 70% of your one repetition max, right? So 70% if you're doing 12 reps, 50% if you're doing 20. So if I can lift 100 pounds, right, and I were doing, if I had a 50 pound, if my one rep max is 100 pounds and I put 50 pounds on that barbell, well, then I would be able to do about 20 repetitions. It's not always perfect, by the way, but it's close.
So I got a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Is it the lesser the weight, the more repetition?
Yes, it is.
Or is it? But that's stability, right?
That's a principle in general, but yes, we do it in stability. We do it everywhere.
Okay, but don't that mean stability versus strength and power?
Yeah, so if I'm doing high reps, I'm focused more on stability. If I'm doing low reps, I'm focused more on strength. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, you're right on there. And that's just because, like, think about it this way. Like, if your one rep max is 200 pounds, right? Well, can you do 200 pounds for more than one rep? No, right? Like, the heavier the weight, the lower the reps. The higher, the lower the weight, the higher the reps. They have what's called an inverse relationship. They're backwards to each other. So that's our stabilization level, right? So I'm actually not going to use that example that I pulled up just a minute ago. I'm going to keep this really, I want to pick we're going to write very, very, very simple programs here. And I'm going to make 5 of them. So let's say we've got a client, right? And they are in stabilization. So our client is, we'll say it's me. I'm the professional, and then the client's name is Jim. And the date is, we're going to say January 1st, 2021, because that's, nobody can wait for 2020 to be over. Right? And we're in stabilization, right? Which means we're in phase 1. So I'm going to keep this really simple. We're going to pick one exercise each. Let's just say this is a client who is working on, they got tight hamstrings. So we're going to go SMR, hamstring complex. We're going to go SMR. I'm sorry, we're going to go static 90-90 hamstring stretch. Right now, obviously, we'd probably do a few more stretches than that, but we're going to keep it really simple. Then we're going to do cardio. We're going to do the treadmill for 5 minutes. So each of these we're going to do, we'll say 2 sets, 1 set of that. And we'll do 30 seconds each, 30 seconds each, and we're going to do 5 minutes on the treadmill there. Okay. And then on the coaching tip, we want to say like, about 50% heart rate max, should be comfortable. It's just a warm up, right? It's not meant to be anything too crazy. So there's our warm up, right? Now, if I move into the core balance reactive section, right? I'm going to pick 1 core exercise, 1 balance exercise, and 1 reactive exercise. I could pick more, I could pick less, but for the sake of simplicity, we're going to pick 1. So we're going to go prone, iso, abs. That's the plank, right? Let's go with a single leg balance with, actually, we'll just go single leg balance. That's perfect. And then our reactive exercise will go a squat, jump to stabilization, right? So there's our reactive exercise. So no movement of the spine, no movement of the balance leg, no movement upon landing. Then in my resistance section, I need to pick stabilization exercises, right? So I'm going to do a ball, squat, curl to press. That's my total body movement. And I'll put that over here just for the sake of it. So we'll say total body. I did this yesterday and I really liked it. Chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, legs, right? You don't always have to go in this order. You don't always have to do it this way. This is just sort of a very efficient way to kind of lay everything out. So ball squat, and it's the example that's commonly in your book. So there's my total body, chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, and legs. We'll do a stability ball chest press, right? That's the chest press on the ball. Let's do a stability ball row. So you've got your chest on the ball and you're doing that rowing motion with dumbbells. Shoulders, we'll do a single leg shoulder press. Biceps, we'll do a single leg by dumbbell biceps curl. Triceps, we'll do a supine ball triceps extension. That means that you're doing the skull crushers, but you're on a stability ball instead of on a bench. And then for the legs, we want to keep this very much in stabilization. So let's go with a single leg Romanian deadlift, right? So you're on 1 leg doing deadlifts, right? And then on my cool down is going to be exactly the same thing. The only difference is I'm starting with a little bit of gentle cardio so that I can end with the stretches. I'm easing out instead of just ending my workout overall, right? All right, so there's my stabilization level. Now, one of the things we got to look at, and Noel, this is your first time seeing this. This is super, 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 super key. It's the reason we do this in every single program design class. These are the numbers you got to get memorized in order to pass your NASM. And it's a lot of numbers. So it is a lot of memorization. Don't worry, we are going to go over this every single module. But this is actually, there's a table on page 371.
What is this, a formula?
It's not a formula.
A formula sheet?
It's not a formula, no, but it is you do need to memorize the number of sets, the number of reps, tempos, and you gotta have all that stuff memorized to pass your test. They will say, which of the following rep schemes is most appropriate for a client in the stabilization level? And you'll need to know it's 12 to 20. They love questions like that. So you got to know them. NASM stabilization acute variables. So luckily you've got tables in your book that will have all these answers. They will have all of these acute variables, but here they all are. This is the stabilization rules. So if for flexibility, you're going to do 1 rep because it's a static stretch. You're not doing multiple reps, right? You can do 1 to 3 sets, and you can do 30-second holds. Intensity doesn't matter. Percentage of your 1 rep max doesn't matter. Frequency, 3 to 7 times per week. You can do it every day, you know? Duration, you generally want to do static stretches for 4 to 6 weeks before you change them up. And then your exercise selection, because it's corrective flexibility, like I talked about when we did our flexibility chapter, that's SMR and static stretches, right? Then we go over to this side of the table. We see the core, right? So for core exercises in stabilization, you're going to do 12 to 20 reps, 1 to 4 sets at a slow tempo. Intensity doesn't matter. Rest interval, 0 to 90 seconds, 2 to 4 times per week. Again, 4 to 6 weeks. And you can pick 1 to 4 core exercises in core stabilization. So you see all these rules right here? These are all the rules we have been going over until now. You should recognize, like, these numbers sound familiar, right? 3 to 5 second hold on landing with the reactive exercises, right? These are all things we have already talked about a little bit. Except for down here, this final box, this final row here. This is your resistance section. In stabilization, you do 12 to 20 reps, 1 to 3 sets, 4 to 1 tempo. Then you see intensity. This is where intensity shows up. You lift it 50 to 70% of your 1 rep max, up to 90 seconds of rest, 1 to 2 stabilization exercises. So Noel, I'm going to have you pick. Here's our program. How many sets for the core, the balance, and the reactive are we doing? You can pick between 1 to 4 for the core, or 1 to 3 for the balance and the plyometric. If I were you, I'd keep them all the same. How many sets we doing? Noel, you there? Oh boy. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick. I don't know if I lost you or what. So you're gonna pick 1 to 3 sets. So we're gonna go with 3. Right, we're keeping it really simple. Now for our reps, for core, that's 12 to 20 reps, right? So let's go ahead and, oh, there you go. You're there. Hello, Noel?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I meant to say 3 reps.
3, okay,
3 reps of
3 sets.
3 sets.
Okay,
Yeah.
now how many reps? You can pick between 12 and 20 for the core.
Say 12.
Love it.
Well, 20, I say 12, but if it depends on the weight, I'll say 20. You know what I mean?
That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
Because then we talking about stability, you know?
Totally. So because it's a plank, right? Because it's a plank, we're gonna do, we can just go ahead and go with like 12. If they get really good, if they get to the end of their set and you say, hey, how hard was that? And they're like, oh, that wasn't too bad. Great, next time we'll do 15. If that wasn't too bad, then we can go up to 20, right? And it's still within our normal healthy ranges. Then if it becomes too easy, like Noel, let's say your client gets to 20 reps on that plank and they're like, you know what, 20 was easy. And it's like, great. Then we put their foot on a ball, right? Or we have them lift one arm up off the ground while they're planking. And now suddenly we make it harder without making it heavier because it's stabilization, right? Stabilization, we make things harder by making them more wobbly. So now,
add more weights, right?
Yeah, we add more weight in the strength level, which we haven't really gotten to just yet. So then my tempo is going to be slow. That's a 4-2-1 tempo. So they're doing these planks for repetitions, right? Now I'm allowed to take 0 to 90 seconds of rest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 0 seconds of rest here because I want them to do this movement prep part as a circuit, right? And so in their coaching tips, because a lot of people don't usually do planks as like repetitions, I'm going to say perform planks as reps, just as like a little coaching tip there. Then we're going to do the single leg balance, right? So single leg balance, they're going to do 12 to 20 repetitions total. That means 6 to 10 repetitions for each leg. So Noel, how many reps? 6 or 10? Or 6 to 10? How many for each leg?
Say depends on the weight. You know what I'm saying?
So this is a
So
balance
we doing
exercise.
heavyweight.
So this is a balance exercise. It doesn't have any weight, right? It's just this.
Okay. 12.
12. Love it. Well, 12 is 2 minutes. Remember, it's 6 to 10, right? See it right here?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 6. I mean 10. Yeah, 10.
There you go. So we'll go with 10 each, right? Our tempo, right? If we look over here, tempo is slow, right? So that's a slow tempo. I actually really like to just kind of write slow and teach my clients that, but we could say slow or 4-2-1. And again, I want to do this as a circuit, so I'm going to do 0 seconds of rest, right? Lastly, we've got the squat jump to stabilization. So that's a body weight exercise. They're not jumping up on any boxes or anything. They're just going to jump and land in place. They're going to hold their landings for 3 to 5 seconds. I can pick between 5 and 8 reps. How many reps, Noel?
From 5 to 8 reps, I say I say 5.
Cool.
5 on that.
5 reps, right? Now, on my tempo here, right, I want to hold my landing for 3 to 5 seconds. So I'm actually going to write that in my little box right here. Tempo is going to be 3 to 5 second hold on landing, right? Now that I'm at the end of my circuit, right, now I'm going to give my client rest. I can choose between 0 to 90 seconds of rest. Let's just go with 60 seconds. That's not too bad, right? So this is almost like a little bit of cardio warm up, even though they already did a little, it's like a warm up. It's a post warm up pre-workout, you know, like I got all my muscles turned on for my client. And you'll notice I picked all these numbers because these are the numbers in my stabilization table, right? So now I'm going to go ahead and move through the next part just a little bit faster. But now I'm going to look at the rest of my workout. I'm going to move down to my resistance section where I've got my resistance exercises pulled up here, right? I've got my ball squat curl to press, the stability ball chest press, right? The stability ball row. So all of these are resistance exercises, and I'm going to choose 12 to 20 reps, 1 to 3 sets, 4-2-1 tempo. My intensity is 50 to 70% of my 1 rep max, which means when I'm choosing a weight for my client, I need to make sure that if I'm doing a low number of reps, I'm doing a high intensity. If I'm doing a high number of reps, I do a low intensity. And then again, 0 to 90 seconds of rest. So let's keep this really simple. We're going to go with 3 sets of everything again. Reps, because my sets are really high, like look at my sets. I can choose between 1 and 3. And we know sets and reps are inversely related. So I could do maybe 1 set of 20 or 2 sets of 20, but 3 sets of 20 is kind of a lot of stress. So because I'm doing a high number of sets, I'm going to choose a lower number of repetitions. Let's go with 15. 12 to 15 is really good. So let's go with this 15 here. Let's do these as single.
So I got a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So if you wanted to max out, would you do a smaller weight and go as many times you want, burnout, or would you go strength, heavyweight, and go as many times you want to max out?
I kind of misunderstood. You mean like if I'm trying, what am I trying to develop? Maximal strength? I'm trying to get my 1 rep max up?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to lift super heavy for very few reps, and I'm going to take lots of rest.
Okay.
Burnouts are better for endurance. You're going to see that in just a minute. We're doing stabilization right now, but max strength is coming up in just a few. So you're going to see that in just a sec. So here we go, right? Here's my program. I'm doing 3 sets of 15 for everything. I'm doing a nice slow tempo for everything. And I'm going to do this as a circuit, right? I'm going to take 0 seconds of rest after every one of these because I can take 0 to 90 seconds of rest. And because this is all about endurance, I'm going to give them this big long circuit. So they're going to do that, you know, they're going to have their ball squat curl to press. So they'll squat, curl, press, squat, curl, press. Immediately, they're going to take the ball, lay it on the ground. They're going to get on their back. They're going to do that stability ball chest press. They're going to flip over on the ball. They're going to do that row. They're going to stand up and do a single leg shoulder press. They're going to take that dumbbell down and do a single leg bicep curl. They're going to get back on the ball, do the skull crushers, and then they're going to leave the ball alone and they're going to do that single leg Romanian deadlift, right? Boom, stabilization routine. They're going to be sweaty. They're going to be out of breath. It's going to be great, right? And then I want to give them plenty of time to recover because we're going to go through that whole circuit 3 times. So I give them 90 seconds of rest. And there we go. That is a total body stabilization routine from start to finish. This right here is a textbook stabilization routine. So Noel, what you just witnessed is we wrote an effective workout for a client. You know, we just wrote a perfect textbook workout. This is the stuff you need to know in order to like write programs for people. So if you had a brand new client, this is the type of program you would write for them. So
I got a question really quick, Brad.
yeah, what's up, Robert?
You said that we're doing the circuit 3 times, so we don't do the same exercise 3 sets in a row. We do it once, then we switch exercises, then switch exercises, and then we repeat it 3 times instead of doing it three sets in a row of the same exercise, right?
Yeah, so there's a difference. So this is a circuit, which means back to back to back exercises, then you rest, then you go back to the top of the circuit. Versus what is like straight sets, which NASM calls horizontal loading. But straight sets would be like, all right, let's say I did, you know, ball squat, curl to press, right? And I did 15 reps, then I set those dumbbells down, then I rested, then my rest is over, and I did that ball squat, curl to press again, and then I rested, and then I did it again, right? So that would be 3 sets. And that would be horizontal. Then I move on to my stability ball chest press. That's a straight set method. Circuit training is where you're going to go back to back to back to back to back, rest at the end, then go all the way back to the top. Think of it as doing like stations, right? And like if you've ever done like a boot camp, that's what circuit training is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I know what circuit training was, but I was just getting confused of like you do everything all at one time and then you rest. But no, it's you do it once, you do it twice, you do it 3 times, and then you rest.
Yeah. Wait.
Oh no, you do
But
it once.
You working more than one muscle, right?
Yeah. This is a total body routine.
That's what make you burn weight faster.
Yeah. So Robert, you could do it. I think I know what you're talking about. You could also do this version, right? Let's say I took, let's say I did this, right? Let's say I took rest after every exercise, right? I could still put a little note here in my coaching tips that says like perform as circuit, right? And or perform as what they call vertical loading. And that's where like I do my first exercise, I do a little bit of rest, but then I move on to my second exercise, a little bit of rest, third, and I move all the way down. And then once I'm done, I go back to the top again. That would be a circuit that has built-in rest, or we'll call that vertical loading. But in this version, in the version that we kind of want to have here, because we want it to be a little more cardio-based, we have it just set up as like squat, curl to press, immediately into the chest press, immediately into the row, immediately into the shoulder press, all the way down. Once you're finished with the deadlift, go right back to the top. Well,
yeah, so
rest all the way back to the top.
And that's horizontal loading.
No, that's vertical loading.
Oh, that's vertical loading. Okay.
Horizontal loading is just your typical working out, like bench press, rest, bench press, rest, bench press, rest, move on, right? That's horizontal loading. Think of it as see how like if you look at how we did the exercises, right? I went boom, 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 boom. Then I went back to the top. Like if you picture it as like columns, right? I did set 1, set 1, set 1, set 1, set 1, back to the top, set 2, set 2, set 2, set 2. So I'm moving vertically versus set 1, set 2, set 3, next exercise, set 1, set 2, set 3. That's horizontal loading. Does that make sense?
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I got you.
Those terms come up next mod, by the way.
Okay.
They don't use them that often. Like, it's weird. It's in your book, but I almost never hear NASA ask about it. It's good though. I mean, it's a good thing to know. Okay. So that's stabilization. We built a perfect stabilization routine. Let's go ahead and build a strength endurance routine. So we got to move into the strength level. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint here. So our second level is strength, right? And this is designed to improve your maximal intensity and your force production, right? We're talking about prime mover strength here. We're talking about like increasing like our ability to lift something heavy, you know, from point A to point B, right? We're literally just looking at strength here. Now, the strength level consists of, whoops, crap, I don't even let, you know what? I'm unpinning you. I open this every day. The strength level consists of 3 individual phases, right? We have the strength endurance level phase, we have the hypertrophy phase, and we have the max strength phase. So Noel, until now, strength has been strength, right? It's just been strength in general. But starting today, now we're looking at, we've got 3 different types of strength, which means we have 3 different sets of numbers. The exercises are the same choice. You're going to do the bench press in all 3 versions of the phases, but the numbers at which you lift are going to be different. And that's where we have phase 1, or we have phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So the first phase of the strength level is going to be your strength endurance phase. Now, strength endurance is a very special phase. And it is not, it is strength, like, don't get me wrong, but I like to think of strength endurance as almost like, rather than being phase 2, I like to think of it as like phase 1.5. Like, it's halfway between stabilization and true strength. It's kind of like caught in this little, it's like caught in the gray area between. And so
that's when you add weights, right?
Yeah, so we're starting to get into the heavy. I mean, we did weights in stabilization, but we did light weights, right?
Yeah.
But now in strength, we're going to start adding weight, and we're going to start lifting in a stable environment. So remember yesterday when I was showing you the difference between, there's a stability ball chest press. That's a stabilization exercise. Then there's a bench chest press. That's a strength exercise, right? But here's the thing. In the stabilization endurance phase, in the strength endurance phase, you are going to utilize a combination of strength and stabilization exercises in order to enhance your endurance, which means you're actually going to do a superset technique. So supersets are 2 exercises back to back with no rest, okay? So if I did like a push-up and then I didn't rest and I went right into bodyweight squats, that would be a superset. Just like a circuit is like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 exercises in a row with no rest, then I rest at the end and go back to the top. That's a circuit. Supersets are like miniature circuits. They're 2 exercises with no rest between. So if I did bicep curls and then did a tricep press down, that would be a superset. And then I rest and then I go back to the curls, then I go back to the press down. That'd be a superset, right? Now, in the strength endurance phase, you have one other special rule here. You are going to do a strength movement first, and then you're going to superset it with a stabilization movement second for the same body part. So in the examples I just gave, I went from push-ups to squats. That is a superset, but a strength endurance superset has to be the same muscles, and it has to be strength followed by stabilization. So remember, I said the stability ball chest press is a stabilization movement for your chest. And I said that a bench chest press is a strength movement for your chest. So if I were doing a strength endurance superset, I would do a bench chest press. I would rack it, immediately get onto a stability ball, and keep going doing that stability ball chest press. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We talking about with a medicine ball or
Stability ball.
Dumbbells?
Stability ball, big squishy ball. Medicine balls are the little tiny ones that are the little heavy tiny ones. That's a medicine ball.
With the weights on it?
Yeah, big squishy ones are the stability ball. That's the, you know, the wobbly ones. So
What about closed grip and wide grip?
that
Closed
doesn't
grip,
matter.
wide grip.
That doesn't
Okay.
matter. I mean, don't get me wrong, it matters. You know, close grip is going to target your triceps a little bit more. Wide grip is going to target your shoulders a little bit more. Triceps are going to be a little bit less in the chest. Wide grip is going to be a little bit more in the chest. But that doesn't make it, you know, what matters is whether or not it's stable or unstable. If it's stable, it's a strength exercise. If it's unstable, it's a stabilization exercise. So grip doesn't matter. But good question. So, all right, so let's look at our numbers here. I want to show you the numbers. So we were looking before at our stabilization numbers, right? We were in this blue box. Now we're in the first part of this green box. We're in the strength endurance part of this green box, right? So that's going to be right over here. So when it comes to like the flexibility programming does not matter if you're in strength endurance, if you're in hypertrophy, or if you're in max strength. They are all the same, flexibility wise. Cardio wise, it's all the same. Core wise, it's all the same. Balance, all the same. Plyometric, all the same. SAQ, all the same. But the resistance section, there's a difference between strength endurance, hypertrophy, and max strength. So let's look at strength and let's talk about like flexibility here. So I'm going to write a new program. I'm going to save this as month 1 here. Month 1, right? So now we are going to evolve my client, right? My client Jim, he's not in strength, he's not in stabilization anymore. Now he's in strength endurance. He is in, it's not January 1st anymore. It is February 1st. He has moved forward into the next month, which means he's not in phase 1, he is in phase 2. So flexibility wise, right? Remember, we are doing active flexibility now. So we're still going to foam roll his hamstring complex because that's still what's tight on Jim, right? But now, instead of doing static stretches, because we've moved into the green here, right? We've moved into our next month. Now we are going to do active stretches. So instead of doing a static 90-90 hamstring stretch, I'm going to do an active 90-90 hamstring stretch. And then because those numbers are different, right? I can't do 30-second holds anymore. I got to change my duration to a 1 to 2 second hold. And then I'm going to do that for 10 reps each, right? So now he's not doing corrective flexibility. He's doing active flexibility. Does that make sense, guys? Do you see how it's different from like the first month? Okay.
Yeah.
So then prone iso abs, right? He's a strength client now. He's not a stabilization client. So prone iso abs, not the right type of core exercise. So now we're going to change this to a stability ball crunch, right? So now he's moving his spine. Rather than doing a single leg balance, we're going to change that to a single leg squat touchdown, right? So now he's suddenly moving his spine, and now he's suddenly moving his balance leg, right? And we're going to move from a squat jump to stabilization. We are just going to change it to a squat jump. And we can just remove the stabilization part. Now he doesn't have to pause at the bottom. He can go right into his next rep. Now, that's 2 to 3 sets for all 3 of these. 8 to 12 reps here, 8 to 12 reps here, 8 to 10 reps here. So I'm going to keep this really simple, and I'm just going to go 3 sets, and we're going to make everything 10. 10 reps each, 10 reps. My tempo is medium. My tempo is medium, and my tempo is repeating. So I'm going to write medium. I'm going to write medium. Whoops. And I'm going to write repeating. And I'm taking 0 to 60 seconds rest. I like the 0, 0, and then take 60, right? And there we go. Now I've changed his strength, his stabilization routine, his stabilization movement prep rather, into stabilization I'm sorry, into strength endurance movement prep. So now, guys, I got to do the same thing to the resistance section, right? But remember, this is where the rules get kind of funky. In strength endurance, we do a superset technique. We do a strength movement first. We pair it with a stabilization movement. And so we do everything at 2 to 4 sets, 8 to 12 reps, but tempo-wise, the tempo is 2-0-2 for your strength movements, and then we do that slow 4-2-1 tempo for your stabilization. And we lift at 70 to 80% of your 1 rep max. So Noel, you were asking, how heavy do you lift, right? Well, we went from 50 to 70%, which is low. Now we're at 70 to 80%. The intensity is getting higher. We're not at 100% yet. We're not going to see that till we get down here. But our intensity is certainly going up. And that's because our reps are going down. So here's the thing. I'm going to remove biceps and triceps from the equation here, just because otherwise this routine will be 10,000 hours long. And I'm going to remove the total body exercise. So we are going to start with a chest.
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How long would it be before you can go up a level weight, a percentage? You know what I mean?
Good question. I've got that answer for you right here when I pull that table up again. So see how this says the duration is 4 to 6 weeks? That's when you move from one phase to the next. So you should be in stabilization for about 4 to 6 weeks. Then you should move into strength endurance for about 4 to 6 weeks. Then we move in, and that's how you're going to up the intensity every month. Now, that being said, Noel, we do want to make sure that every workout is hard and challenging, right? So let's say you're like 3 weeks into your routine and you're like, you know what? This isn't that hard anymore. You can add 5 pounds or so, right? Because your 1 rep max has moved up. So you can add weight whenever you want, as long as you are staying in the right rep range. Now, if I had you, like, let's say you were my client and you were in strength endurance and you were like, you did all 12 reps and you were like, that was easy, right? And 12 is the maximum number of reps. You were like, I can do more reps. And you're like, okay, that means that the weight is too light. So I decided to add some weight on there, but then all of a sudden you can only do 6 repetitions. And you're like, whoa, that was 6, that was really hard. 6 is too low. I want you between 8 and 12 reps. So I added too much weight. So I would strip some of the weight off and I'd get you somewhere in the middle there. Then 4 to 6 weeks from now, I'm going to drop you down to 6 to 12 reps. 4 weeks after that, I'm going to drop you to 1 to 5 reps. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. So stability ball chest press was our chest exercise. So I'm actually going to keep that, but we're going to change it to a very traditional strength movement, the bench press, everybody's favorite, right? So there's our bench press there. Now I'm going to take a little bit of rest. And actually, hold on. Let me delete all these numbers here. So there's, I'm going to take a little bit of rest here. So this is going to be chest strength. This is chest stabilization, right? And then I'm going to go with back strength, back stabilization. So now we did the stability ball dumbbell row, right? So now I got to do a heavier strength version. So I'm just going to do a barbell bent over row. And that's going to pair really well with my stability ball dumbbell row. I did that single leg shoulder press. Well, before I do the single leg shoulder press, instead, I'm going to do a military press, right? That's the barbell shoulder press, right? So now I'm doing the military press, then I pair that, right? So that is shoulder strength followed by shoulder stabilization. Then finally, I've got my single leg Romanian deadlift. I'm going to do a regular old barbell deadlift beforehand. And that is my leg strength paired with leg stabilization. You'd think I know how to spell stabilization by now. Right? So there we go. So now I've got a strength endurance routine. You'll notice I left a little space here. So remember, these are supersets, right? Supersets need to be performed with 0 rest in between exercise, the first exercise and the second exercise. So I'm going to go 0 seconds rest here, and then I'm allowed to take 0 to 60 seconds of rest. The rest is kind of short. It's only up to 60 seconds. And 60 seconds is perfect because I am working on endurance here, right? So 0 seconds, 60 seconds, 0 seconds, 60 seconds, 0 seconds, 60 seconds, right? Now my sets are going to be 2 to 4 sets, right? Now I want my sets to go up because I want to go from, I was going from 3 sets. Now I'm going to go, why don't I take it up to 4 here, right? So I'm going to go 4 sets. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to go 3 because otherwise, again, it'll be way too long. So let's go 3 sets. I'm allowed to pick 2 to 4, so that works just fine. And then I'm allowed to do 8 to 12 repetitions. So let's say I go with 10 reps on each of these. So I was in my first month, I was doing 15 reps. Now, you'll notice I'm doing 10 reps here, but remember, there's no rest between. So technically, that means I'm doing 20 reps. My tempo for my strength movements are always going to be 2-0-2, and my tempo for my stabilization movements are always going to be 4-2-1. So here's our routine, right? I'm going to zoom in so you guys can definitely see this, right? Now I'm going to do the bench press for 10 reps. Boom. Knock it out for 10. Then I'm immediately going to rack it. I'm going to drop down onto a stability ball, grab some dumbbells, and do a nice, slow stability ball chest press, right? And that means I'm doing 20 repetitions for my chest in a row. And I went from something that's super heavy to something that's lighter, but I still got to keep going, right? Now, I could change that stability ball chest press to push-ups. I want you to imagine, guys, doing 10 heavy bench presses where you can't do 11. And then you got to rack it, and now you got to do 10 push-ups at this tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1. Do you think your chest is going to be burning after all that? That answer should be an emphatic yes. So that is a strength endurance routine. Noel, how do you feel about that? How clear is all that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you see how we went from like a strength movement to a stabilization movement? That's the rule for strength endurance. And you know the difference between a strength movement and a stabilization movement. You see all that?
Resistance. So resistance is a strength movement or a stabilization.
Resistance is where we are in our body parts: chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, or legs, or total body, right? So those are the 7 categories of resistance. Core, balance, and reactive, those are the categories for the movement prep. So we picked chest, back, shoulders, and legs. I didn't throw biceps and triceps or total body in here just because, you know, the routine would be too long. So that is a sort of textbook strength endurance routine. So we'll call that month 2, right? So now let's move on to hypertrophy. Let's look at the bodybuilding, right? Hypertrophy, our muscular size, right? So going back to our notes here. So that was strength endurance, right? Hypertrophy, this is going to be used moderate intensity with moderate duration. This is the middle of the OPT model, right? We're looking at phase 3 here. We're right here in the middle, which means it's not low reps. It also means it's not high reps. It's in the middle. It's not low intensity. It's not high intensity. It's in the middle. So here's what's kind of cool though, because it's still the strength level, we're just going to choose strength exercises. So I am going to move my client into hypertrophy. This is Jim's 3rd month, right? It is no longer February 1st. It is now March 1st. It is no longer phase 2. It is phase 3. Now, let's be perfectly clear here and perfectly honest. You would not do the same workout the same warm up and the same movement prep for your client multiple months in a row. You should totally change it up so that your client doesn't get bored and so that they don't adapt. But I'm trying to make a very clear textbook example here. So notice I am not going to change his warm up because the warm up for hypertrophy, the warm up for strength endurance, and the warm up for max strength, they're all strength. They're all identical. So we're good. We can leave that alone. Same thing is true here. Movement prep, I don't need to change a thing. This is perfect the way it is. My hypertrophy clients and my strength endurance clients, their movement prep, their warm-ups, they're the same. But their resistance, their body part sections, this is totally different. So I need to do some deleting here. We're going to go back to the idea of doing that total body routine. So we're going to start with a total.
I got a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Is that Excel what you using for graphs?
This is Microsoft Word.
Microsoft Word?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do use Excel, but not right now. This is just Word. And I built some tables. Do you have access to that?
Not on my phone, but on my iPad, I might could look it up.
Love it.
Download it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
But if you can send a
super.
couple apps or something like that, you know what I'm saying? Some Excel, some graphs or something where we can find those type of graphs, you know?
Yeah, so NASM does. I save this as a PDF. I will send this stuff to you. I'll send it as a PDF. That way you can read it without needing Microsoft Word, just in case you don't have it. Have you noticed like your homeworks? I always send them as both, just in case. Some of you, like if you have Microsoft Word and you want to like change the font color and stuff, you can do that. But I'll send out like the PDF versions. That way you don't worry about having to read this. You'll be able to read it just fine. Okay, so here's the thing. We're gonna go into a total body strength movement, right? So I'm gonna go with a lunge to two arm dumbbell press. Okay. So the lunge to two arm dumbbell press, that is our total body movement, right? So, you know, they're going to do like a walking lunge, curl, press, walking lunge, curl, press, right? Whole body's getting involved, right? So there's my total body movement. Then again, this is the strength level, right? So bench press, I'm going to leave it alone. It's perfect. Keep it. Barbell bent over row, love it. Keep it. Military press, keep it. I need a strength bicep exercise. So we're going to do a standing barbell biceps curl. And we'll do a we'll do a supine bench triceps extension. Again, skull crushers, right? I'd probably use the easy bar if I was being honest. But there we go, right? Now I've got my biceps, my triceps, I got my total body again. Now, because this client is all about gains with a Z, right? This is my hypertrophy client, right? I'm definitely gonna go up with the sets. We went from 3 sets of 15 to 3 sets of 10 plus another 3 sets of 10. Now I'm gonna change this to 4 sets. And my reps, I'm going to go down. I went from 15 reps down to 10 reps. Now I'm going to go down even lower. We're going to change the rep scheme all the way down to 8. We're going to do 4 sets of 8 with everything. My tempo is going to be 202 for every single movement. Now,
I was thinking with the tricep curls, you know, the resistant bands will work great with the tricep curls because it's working more of the muscles. You know what I'm saying?
I do love it, but that one's not in your textbook. I'm only picking these are very basic routines. These are meant to be only in your book. That's also why I'm using words like standing barbell biceps curl. I would totally just call it a barbell curl, you know? Or supine bench triceps extension, right? Blech. We call it a skull crusher. But no, I'm just trying to be very, very textbook here. Resistance bands I do like. I will say this. This is a pro tip for the day, not in your textbook. There is a difference between this head of your tricep, like up here, and this head of your tricep down here. The resistance band tricep extension where you go like this, that's really good for your short head down here, versus when you're in this position, when you have your tricep extended like up here, you have a right angle here, that's the upper part of your tricep. So if you want to develop more here, you need to do this version of tricep stuff. But if you want to develop more down by your elbow, you need to do that version of tricep stuff. You can do both those with resistance bands, right? I could take a resistance band and go like this, and that would be this part. Or if I go like this, that would be this part. There's your extra lesson for the day. All right, now, like I said, this is all about gains with a Z, right? So this is my hypertrophy routine. That means I'm probably not gonna wanna do this as a circuit. If I do it as a circuit, my client's heart rate's gonna go super high. They're gonna burn way too many calories. So, Robert, we were talking about this a bit ago. We're gonna do horizontal loading. We're gonna do straight sets. So I'm gonna take 60 seconds of rest at the end of every set. And it's gonna be straight sets. And there you go. That's a textbook hypertrophy routine. Got a bodybuilder? There's their routine, right? And here's the thing, my intensity, let's go back to my big chart, right? Right, all of this stayed the same, but we went 3 to 5 sets. So I could have gone even higher with the sets. I could have done 5 sets of 6, you know? Higher with the sets, so 3 to 5 sets, 6 to 12 reps, 2-0-2 tempo. Now notice how my intensity went from 50 to 70, up to 70 to 80. Now we're at 75 to 85. We're starting to get pretty intense. 85% of your 1 rep max. That's pretty high, right? Because I picked 8 repetitions, that's probably around 80% of your 1 rep max, 75 to 80, somewhere in there. And there we go. That's our hypertrophy routine. All right, questions about hypertrophy?
No, but I did notice that since we're not doing the strength endurance, we don't have to do the back-to-back strength and stabilization. So strength endurance, when you're working with your clients, that's usually like when you're in that month, that's when you're using up a lot more time, huh?
Yeah. You know, it doesn't take as much time as you would think. That is why I took the biceps and the triceps out though, so that I could save a little time. But it doesn't take quite as long as you would think. It almost takes, like, as long as you are really efficient, like have that ball ready for your client, you know? Be like, boom, racket, get on the ball, you know, like rate of play, you know, like it's almost like you're running a 2-minute drill, the whole workout. As long as you move through it pretty quickly, it's almost like doing a set of 20 in a way, you know what I mean? Because you're not taking rest the first time, you're only taking rest after the second exercise. But yeah, you will notice like sometimes those workouts get pretty lengthy. All right, let's move forward a month. So now, maximal strength. Strength with a side of strength, right? So phase 4, this is your max strength program, right? This is where we're gonna really get into lifting heavy. So this is gonna utilize maximal intensity with low duration. So you're not gonna do very many reps in order to develop maximal force production. So Noel, you were asking like, how do I increase your, you know, if I was trying to make my 1 rep max go up, this is the phase of training I would use. So I'm gonna do 4 to 6 sets. That is a lot of sets, right? And I'm gonna do 1 to 5 repetitions. That is very low repetitions. Now, here's one thing that's a little confusing. You'll notice that the tempo is XXX. That means that you're trying to move that barbell as fast as you can, even though all of us who have ever done like a max strength lift where you have that thing where you're like, oh my God, that's heavy. You know, you move very, very slowly, right? You know, you're coming out of that, you're under the barbell and you're like, boom, oh, please, you know. It goes you're trying to move explosively, even if you're not, you know, actually moving explosively. So we're trying to do a fast tempo. And then here it is, 85 to 100% of your 1 rep max. And then 3 to up to 5 minutes of rest. I know professional powerlifters who take 10 minutes of rest between sets, which to me sounds like a freaking nightmare because that sounds so boring. But 3 to 5 minutes resting. That's because the intensities here are so high. So we are moving Jim into April. That's going to be phase 4, and he is in max strength. Again, it's still the strength level, so SMR and active stretches. I don't have to change anything. Still stability ball crunch, still single leg squat touchdown, still squat jump. That's all it's saying. I don't need to change any of that. But now I need to change all of these. Actually, you know what? I don't need to change any of these. These are all still strength movements, but I do need to change the reps. So I'm going to move all these movements and change them to between 3 and 6 sets here, right? So I see my numbers, right? I'm sorry, 4 to 6 sets. What am I saying? 4 to 6 sets here, 1 to 5 repetitions, XXX tempo, right? So I go back here and I look at my routine, and I'm going to do, we did 4 sets last time. We're going to do 5 sets of everything this time. My reps, I'm going to keep those reps relatively low. Let's say I'm going to do 5 sets of 4, right? I'm allowed to do, I'm going to do 1 to 5 repetitions. Or I could do the classic. Actually, you know what? We'll do the classic. We'll do the 5 by 5, right? 5 by 5. My tempo, XXX. My rest period, 3 minutes.
Wouldn't that be short of a rest period if you're going XXX?
Kind of. I mean, 3 minutes is still really long. Yeah, I could make it 5 minutes if I wanted to. Absolutely. Here's the thing. What do you guys know about this workout?
It's quick. It's not that long.
This would actually be super long.
Oh, because it's 5 sets.
5 sets. So that is 5 sets at 3 minutes. You know what that means? For just this exercise alone, that is 15 minutes of rest. So my workout right now is, without even talking about the lifting portion, 15, 30, 45, 60. That is an hour and 45 minutes of rest built into this workout. So generally, you're going to go ahead and kill the biceps and triceps. There's just not room. There's just not time, you know? And generally, I will not often do like a total body movement in my strength routine unless it's like a barbell clean or something like that. So now we got 4 movements, 3 minutes of rest, 5 sets each. That's still 60 minutes of just resting alone in this routine. 15 here, 30, 45. That's 60 minutes of rest. Not to mention how much time it takes to lift those 5 reps each, or, you know, maybe walk to the gym. What about our warm up here, right? What about our movement prep? That takes time. So here's the thing. You will notice if you look at your NASM acute variables in your textbook, there's this little asterisk at the bottom. When you look on page 378, I want to say. If you look on page 378, you'll notice these little asterisks next to plyometric, balance, and core, and next to SAQ. See these little symbols here? And if you read down below, it says, because the goal is maximal strength, core, balance, plyometric, and SAQ may be optional in this phase of training, although they are recommended. So generally, if I've actually got a real life max strength client, guys, I don't do movement prep before my max strength workouts. I will instead do them on my cardio days. And instead I'll do a couple like warm-up sets with a few movement prep exercises kind of thrown in to my workouts. And then you just have to kind of commit to the fact that like this is probably going to be a 90-minute workout instead of an hour. We don't actually get to do max strength very often with a lot of our clients in traditional 60-minute gym settings. And that's just kind of a bummer reality that we live in. It's very difficult when you work in a traditional gym setting to do, actual max strength workouts. But if we did, here's a textbook one. You guys have any questions about this? Noel, how you feeling?
All right.
All right. So now we're almost done. Let's move into the power phase. So I got to go back to the PowerPoint actually. So now we're going to look at the power level, right? Power level of training. After you've completed stabilization and strength, then you qualify for power, right? And so we're going to emphasize the development of speed and power here. And we're looking at rate of force production, right? So this is actually going to utilize superset techniques as well. So power and strength endurance, guys, they're very similar to each other. They both do supersets. So the third level of the OPT is designed to improve maximal rate of force production, right? We've focused on force production and strength. Now we're focusing on rate of force production and power. So we're going to utilize maximal intensities and maximal velocities in order to enhance that motor unit firing rate and synchronization. And this is going to utilize superset techniques as well. You're going to do strength first, and then you're going to do a power exercise second. So this is almost like phase 4.5 instead of actually phase 5, right? 3 to 5 sets, 1 to 5 reps for the strength movement, but 8 to 10 reps for the power movement. XXX tempo for both, and then 85 to 100% of your 1 rep max for the strength, or 30 to 45% of your 1 rep max for the power, or up to 10% of your body weight. So looking on our routine here, my client is going to move into May, which is going to put him in phase 5, and that's going to put Jim into power, right? So now my warm-up doesn't work anymore because this is a strength warm-up. So I'm not going to do an active 90-90 hamstring stretch. Instead, I'm going to do we're going to do a straight leg march. That's that straight leg kick, right? And then you'll notice, actually, if we look at our rules here, right, for flexibility, we're doing functional flexibility. So he still gets to SMR, but he's going to do dynamic stretches like the straight leg kick. And we're going to pick 3 to 10 exercises. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to say straight leg march, butt kickers, and arm circles. That is about as simple as it gets. You're going to do 1 to 2 sets of 10 to 15 reps. So we'll do 2 sets of everything, 15 reps each. Now, that is a very short warm-up. I'm not actually a big fan, but again, simplicity today. Now, you'll notice I don't have cardio here. Cardio, you will actually, if you look at your power acute variables, you'll notice there's a little asterisk here, and it will say, because your dynamic stretches actually kind of get your heart pumping, you can actually use this in lieu of a cardio warm-up. So I don't need to have them on the treadmill for 5 minutes anymore. Now, stability ball crunch isn't a core power exercise, so I can't do that anymore. So instead, I'm going to do a stability ball pull over throw. So he's going to do that crunch, but he's doing an explosive crunch, right? So again, he went from not moving his spine the first month to moving his spine in months 2 through 4. And then in month 5, he's moving his spine super fast. Then instead of doing a single leg squat touchdown, I'm going to do a single leg squat jump to stabilization. So now, in the first month, he didn't move his balance leg. In months 2 through 4, he moved his balance leg through a full range of motion. Now he's going to jump and land with his balance leg, right? And then in the first month, we held our landings for 3 to 5 seconds. In months 2 through 4, we did a repeating tempo for our squat jumps. In month 5, I'm going to do ice skaters, which means he's going to do maximal rate of force production at as explosively a tempo as possible. So if I go back to my little table here with all the rules, 2 to 3 sets for all of them, 8 to 12 reps for all of them, XXX tempo for both of the core power and plyometrics, but we are balanced power. We want to do a landing for 3 to 5 seconds, and 0 to 60 seconds of rest. So if I go here, I'm going to keep it at 3 sets. I'm going to allow to pick 8 to 12 reps. So I actually really like 10 reps. I think that's going to work just fine. We're going to do 10 reps each on both of these. And then our tempo is going to be XXX here. 3-second hold on our landing. And XXX right here. Right? And there we go. Now that's my new movement prep. That is a perfect example of a power movement prep, right? Now, like I said earlier, we have to do the superset technique in power just like we did in strength endurance. So this is actually very, very similar to strength endurance. We have to do that superset technique here. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with a strength movement. So looking here, guys, take a look. You're always going to do a resistance strength movement, then you're going to do a resistance power movement, right? So if I go back over here, this is going to be chest strength. This is going to be back strength, shoulder strength, leg strength, right? Oh, whoops, this needs to be here. Oh, no, right. And then we're going to do chest power. So you know what so bench press, super heavy, chest power, medicine, ball, chest pass, right? Barbell bent over row, medicine, ball, slam, right? That's that big explosive slam like this. Military press, we'll go with a push press. Barbell deadlift, we'll go with a kettlebell swing, right? So I went from a super heavy chest exercise into a super explosive chest exercise. I went from a super heavy upper back exercise to a super explosive upper back exercise. I went from a super heavy shoulder exercise into a super explosive shoulder exercise. And I went from a super heavy leg exercise into a super explosive leg exercise. And I would do, we can see here, 3 to 5 sets, 1 to 5 reps for my strength movement, so I can actually leave those reps alone, and then 8 to 10 reps for my power movement. And I want to take 0 seconds in between the two of them because there's it's a superset technique, right? So I'm going to keep this, I'm going to change this to 4 sets just because we are, doing more exercise. And I'm going to keep it at 5 reps there, and I'm going to do 10 reps here. And both of them are an XXX tempo. And this would be chest strength, followed by chest power, back strength, followed by back power, shoulder strength, followed by shoulders power, leg strength, followed by leg power. And our rest is going to be 0 seconds here. And then when you look at the rest, it will say 1 to 2 minutes between pairs, 3 to 5 minutes between circuits. So we're going to take 2 minutes of rest here. And there we go. There's our textbook power routine. How you guys feeling? Do you have any questions on that? Noel, how you feeling?
All right.
First time seeing power. So this is a very much like athlete specific thing, Not a lot of standard clients are going to get workouts like this, especially not senior clients. So there's this is our big chart that has every one of these rules written. We've stayed in this column for a good chunk of today, you know, but we used all of this table. Now, there are some cardio rules here, and we've already been over them, so I'm going to move through them relatively quickly, but let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like, right? So obviously, we also have stage training when it comes to cardio, right? So cardiorespiratory training, you've got level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 clients are usually going to end up doing stage 1 cardio. So stage 1 cardio is focusing on basically working up to about 30 to 60 minutes of uninterrupted zone 1 cardio, right? So you're going to focus on 30 to 60 minutes of uninterrupted zone 1. Zone 1 is 65 to 75% of your heart rate max. It's a 12 to 13 on the RPE scale. You can think of it as like you should be able to hold a conversation pretty comfortably the whole time. So clients with little fitness should really only begin in stage 1 before progressing into stage 2 once they can handle a full 30 minutes of stage 1, you know. Then when we move into stage 2, that's where we start introducing interval training. It's not like high intensity interval training. It's not HIIT training, but it is like medium intensity interval training. So stage 2 is going to improve your lactate threshold. This is 76 to 85% of your heart rate max. That's a 14 to 16 on the RPE scale. Talking should be difficult, but not impossible. And you're always going to recover in zone 1. So it actually looks something kind of like this. You warm up for 5 to 10 minutes below zone 1. Then you do 1 minute at your lactate threshold, recover for 3 minutes in zone 1, back to zone 2 for 1 minute, 3 minute, 1 minute, and then cool down, right? 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, right? And so you're doing intervals, but you're not going up into this red zone. You're not going into high intensity interval land. That's where stage 3 or level 3 comes in, right? Level 3 clients in the power phase, they're going to use stage 3 cardiorespiratory routines. This is all about peak work capacity, right? So this is 86 to 95% of your heart rate max. That's a 17 up to 19 on the RPE scale. That's almost maximal, right? It only goes from 6 to 20. Talking should be nearly impossible, right? You should be completely out of breath here. And you want to recover in zone 2 and recover in zone 1. So you might do 1 minute at zone 2, do another minute slightly higher, work your way into zone 3 where you're peaking, and then take it back into zone 2, and then back into like peaking. So you're kind of really focusing on getting out of breath. If your client can't handle recovering in zone 2, they can go from 3 to 1. That's another way you can recover. You can go 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. But if you can handle 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, go for it. And that's what you can see here. So this table here has every rule in the entire OPT, right? It has got your flexibility stuff for stabilization, your cardio stuff for stabilization, core balance and reactive, speed, agility, and quickness, and resistance. And then we move into strength, which you'll notice is all the same until we get to these 3 boxes here.
Yo.
Yeah, question.
Is this all in the book?
Of course it is.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
The graph right here, things like that.
Not like this. In your book, they're all separate graphs. You'll have like this blue box here is a graph, and then this top section is a graph. Do you have a pen on you?
No.
Okay, it's on page 379, 381, 383. It's all in chapter 14. So get your regular book and go to chapter 14, page 379. That's where all the rules start.
The graph, you sent the graph out to us too. So what I did is I just printed out the cube variables, that graph right there. Noah,
Yeah.
he sent it out and then I just printed it out. So I look at it every time it's time for big chart day.
Yeah. And Noel, you can keep this on your phone as well, because I'm going to send it to you in just a bit. It's downloadable on Canvas, and you're going to get it in your email today.
Cool.
Yeah, but they are in your book as well. Some people took photos of the pages in their book, and that helps. some people, everybody's got kind of different methods. A lot of people make flashcards. They'll make their own tables. To be honest, you guys haven't really experienced it, but in real time, Robert, when I do big chart day, I remake this on the whiteboard and make everybody take notes every time. So like
that's great. That'll actually like put that in your head rather than printing it out and trying to memorize
forces
it.
people to memorize it. Yeah. And people are like, do you have a physical copy of that? And I'm like, no, I don't. I usually lie. So anyway, there is more to program design, guys. Obviously, I just picked exercises at random today, right? Well, not at random. I picked them out of the right categories, right? I picked the strength category, stabilization category. If I were actually working with my client, I would consider the right category, just like I did today, but I would also consider which exercises work their underactive muscles. So if my client's knees cave in, I would use exercises that do abduction. So I would do things like lateral lunges, right? Or, barbell squats to work on like their glutes. But that is a very basic guide to the numbers today. You guys got any final questions?
I don't know how to word this, but I mean, because I think I ask this question all the time. How do you tell your clients like, I don't know how to word this, but how would you tell your clients we can't go that far yet because we have to do this?
Oh, you don't even have to.
Like
you don't have to worry too much about that. They will do the programs. They can say, why are we doing this way? And it's like, because this is what we're building we're going to build on this foundation later. Just that's enough for them. You don't have to go into a deep physiology lesson or anything. They'll be like, hey, can we do lower reps? And it's like, I'm going to start trying higher reps this month, and then we're going to work towards lower reps next month.
Yeah. Like why? Like they'll probably ask, like, why can't we do heavier weight? Like this feels too easy for me. But then we're really in stabilization. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no. If you're doing any of it, then no one will say it's too. That's the thing. Like stabilization seems too easy because it's like, oh, high reps. It should burn like crazy. If they get through 12,
I got a question.
If you're doing like, your reps and they're like that's why you want to continually check in with your client every set. Be like, how'd that feel? How was that? Was that too easy? Was that tough? What'd you think? Like check in with them constantly, because if they go, oh, it was too easy, make it harder.
Okay, I got a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So don't you gotta, before you start the class, don't you gotta tell them about the steps, what we gonna do, like a ladder or or pyramid, to get to the top, and tell them what we trying to accomplish as far as that, what we going with the system, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can have those conversations, but a lot of times they'll just trust your expertise, I mean, I love explaining to my clients, like, hey, we're going to start with this month, and we're going to build on it. But like, you're not going to get very many questions mid-workout where they're like, oh, that was too easy. How do we make this harder? Can we go heavier on the weight and do less reps? It's like, no, we'll go heavier on the weight, but like, I want to keep you in the same energy system, because that's the other thing, is like, we're trying to target specific types of metabolism. That's, we didn't talk too much about that today, because this isn't a metabolism mod. But like, we're trying to keep them in like a specific energy zone. If I'm trying to develop your max strength, I don't want you to go aerobic. I want to keep you anaerobic the entire time. But if I was trying to develop your endurance, I don't want you to end before we get aerobic, But in terms of measuring your intensity with your clients, they should be getting close to failure every set. And you'll get really familiar when you're working with your clients with how to do that. It's not that you can't raise the weight in stabilization. You totally can. It's just generally we want to modify stabilization by making it harder, by making it more unstable. And that'll still be harder, Any other questions? That was a good one. That was a good, I like that topic.
No, it's good.
Nope. All right. Well, guys, Noel, you made it through your first big chart. We are going to do this same lecture again in 6 weeks. So if these numbers seemed confusing, they're coming back.
It's all about repetition for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Hey, make sure we had homework 3 go out yesterday. Homework 4 is going to go out tomorrow. We just talked a bunch about numbers today. So guess what? Most of the questions tomorrow are going to be very number based. So make sure you have these notes, like you can pull them up on your phone and be like, you know, which of the following rep schemes is appropriate for a client in hypertrophy? And then you can look through your notes and be like, 6 to 12, right? You want to be able to answer that pretty easily. Use your notes. Use your notes on your homework. That's helping you learn, you know? All right, gentlemen, I will see you guys tomorrow.
I got one more question, Brad.
Oh, yeah.
Refresh my memory. How do you find a person's 1 rep max really quickly?
So you would do a 1 rep max assessment, or you could do a little bit of math. You know, if they did like 12 reps and they were like, I couldn't have done 13, that was hard. You could always just be like, well, 12 is 85%. Or, I'm sorry, 12 is around 75% of their 1 rep max. So they did 100 pounds. They should be able to do maybe 120 as their 1 rep max. You could do that version, or you could do a 1 rep max assessment. So you put them on and you make them lift, and they do 1 rep, and you know, if they can do 2, then they rack it and you make it heavier until they go to failure. And once they fail doing 1 rep, you know, whatever the last weight was, that was their 1 rep max.
And the assessment is a quicker way to find it, right? Or
Yeah.
at least I feel.
And much more accurate too. Much more accurate. It is a long time though, I will say. 1 rep max assessments kind of suck. They take up all the time in the world. I hate doing
If I remember, you pulled up a table, right? That was like
Yeah.
someone's, and this should be their 1 rep max from their age or something like that.
Yeah. I'll pull that table up again in our sports class when it comes up in just a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And actually, we're going into the assessments class Tuesday. So that's where we'll also kind of go over that. It is coming up.
Sounds good.
Okay, bro, I'm out.
All right, guys. See you tomorrow.
You guys have a good one.
Yeah, you too.